Why would I work at a drugstore? I don't understand where I would be put into these, according to them, jobs, knowing that I have a good resume. They said I always drop out of something. I never drop out of anything. I went to the same schools, the full terms. I'm not dropping out of anything. I don't drop out of stuff. So why would I suddenly want to be in a store flyer? I wouldn't be. Why would I suddenly want to work at a drugstore? I wouldn't. And that's my point. They keep trying to twist things that happened over, 20 years ago to make it something that makes sense today. Well, it made sense at the time. When 20 years ago, we didn't even have this smartphone. Smartphones didn't exist. I mean, we're not going, I feel like this. When I talk about how I can't get along with them and I hate them, I really do hate them. And I try not to, but I can't help myself. It's like I would have to spend every day, all day arguing. We didn't have smartphones 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we didn't have the choices we have now. Life was different. Why would 20 years ago, my 20-year-old self, 30-year-old woman, want to live like this? I wouldn't. I didn't choose to live like this now. So they say something kind of in an awkward way. I can't remember what it was. So very or very many or something like that. Because most of them aren't native English speakers. And if you're not a native English speaker, it is going to sound different. So they wanted to use audio from them talking and make it seem like it's me. But they had a hard time because of the native English speech that I have. Like I speak like a regular Bronx girl. I speak like someone from the Bronx. So they wanted to compare me to Felicia, but Felicia's family's native language is Spanish. Her grandmother doesn't speak any English. Her mother kind of speaks Spanish, kind of speaks English. Her dad speaks Spanish. Her aunt is fluent in Spanish. So her speech is affected by the fact that they speak Spanish as a first language, English as a second. And that's what I'm saying. Like all of this, they said they were going to use what Felicia says as me because we were supposed to be the same. We're nothing alike. And that's my point. We're dealing with people who came up with a completely different story from reality. Eric Shafir's first language, I thought, was German. But now they say it might not have been German. But Eric Shafir's first language isn't English, and his English is that of someone who's a second non-native speaker. Same thing with Felicia. And her family, they're non-native English speakers. So that is part of what I'm saying. We're dealing with a group of people who had some way of doing this, but they're not the ones running it. They're doing it and involved in it, but not the ones running it. The next thing I want to talk about, the idea that they said that they wanted me to help people write. Why? Why would I be an unpaid writer? It doesn't make any sense. So when they were trying to change my life story and put themselves into it and put themselves like really deep into my life, it doesn't make any sense. I met Felicia when I went into third grade at St. Helena's. By that point, it wasn't going to be her involved in my life prior to that. It's impossible. Then they talked about Eric. I met Eric 1992 spring semester of my freshman year. Again, he wouldn't have been in my life prior to that. So they said there's another thing that's confusing them. Why did I happen to date a lot of guys who they think are gay? Well, I worked in professions where there are a lot of gay males. Retail, flight attendant. It's just how it is. I mean, why would we even worry about that? But there are a lot of guys who in those professions date women. So again, we're going back to the point where things aren't what they were 20 something, 30 something years ago. So they said one guy that I met when I was a flight attendant, that would have been in 1996. So you know how long ago that is. We're talking about life was different back then. I think it's too hard to compare what happened in the 90s to what's happening in 2023. The last point I want to make before I end this video is that when they were trying to go over my life and ask these people, their opinions and the way they see the world is always going to be based on them. There are some people I know who could look at life and see it from a different point of view. I always say, change your perspective. But those people are very set in how they see the world. It's always going to be from their perspective. It's very difficult for them to put themselves in someone else's shoes. The other point they made was they were worried again about the first car I bought. I was introduced to the car dealer from a coworker I had at the Botanical Garden who was about 12 years older than I am. And there was a problem with it. And that's my point. It seems to me that they're looking at things that happened, that would have been in 1996, again, in 1996, and questioning what happened based on today's information. 1996, what type of information do we have about cars? Think about when you got a car back then. We didn't have the type of technology and the way to screen and find out things. We got things through other people. It was like, oh, here's a referral. This is someone I know. You might have a good experience with that person. It's not that big a deal, but in them trying to link everything together, they're making what happened decades ago seem like it would happen today, and basing it on our knowledge today, what happened decades ago. That doesn't make any sense. So that's another big deal. I think what was really the big deal is that I think what is going on today is that the